Hi, everyone. We are entering week 4, which means you are likely drafting and maybe continuing to research your speech. And we are devoting most of this week to finalizing those drafts and practicing for speech 1. You will deliver these speeches next week, week 5, and you will deliver them on video. So you do not have to have an audience to present these to, but you will record yourself presenting to your web camera of choice, and then you will upload your video to the discussion board for me and your classmates to see. And you will post a draft of your speech to Blackboard for me to see. I use that outline, that draft, to check your content and to check your sources. And since I have combined these two sections of speech and I'm looking at upwards of 50 speeches, I need to have that in writing so that I can remember what everybody has said and that I can assess that your intro does the job of an introduction, get our attention, establish credibility, preview your points, give your thesis, and that I can assess your sources and that your points make sense. So those are the two components of presenting your speech. A few things to note on recording. Make sure that you are recording in an area that is well lit and quiet. And so you might have to play around in whatever setting, whether that's at home or work or a friend's house, making sure that you are framed up so that we mostly see, you from here up and no more than that. We also want to avoid things like whirring, ceiling fans overhead, a lot of outside noises, having TVs or radios on in the background. If you have children or pets, just maybe, I know that I have a cat at home who does not like a shut door and does not like to be alone. But if you are recording, you do have the chance to, do a couple takes. I've had to do this one a couple times today. So play around with that. Think about how well lit you are so that we can see you. Some of the things that I'm looking for are that we can easily hear you, that I don't have to turn my volume up all the way to 100, that we can easily see you, we can see your eyes, and it will take some time of you focusing on looking at your web camera. It is not natural for us to look at that little dot. We have a tendency to look at ourselves, but you want to connect your eyes with your audience, and your audience lives through that web camera. So make sure that you're practicing looking at the camera versus looking at the screen. If you have glasses, just be aware that sometimes your glasses can reflect the light, so you might want to play around with that a little bit too. So check your light levels, check your sound levels, check for distracting noises or motions, and do a few test runs if you need to, a few test videos. So I'm going to pull up our Blackboard shell if I'm able to, and see if I can actually get it to share, because my screen doesn't always want to pick the right tab. So next week, you are presenting your speech. Take a look at that PDF attachment to review the speech assignment. And if you're not sure yet how you're going to record and upload, I do suggest that you take a look at a YouTube channel if you don't have one. You can restrict who sees it. I don't know that the private listing works. I've had a couple of students who did that in their intros and I wasn't able to see it. So play around with that. I've also in the past recorded videos through Zoom and then upload them through Screencast-O-Matic or through YouTube. So there are various applications that you can use to record and upload. You are continuing to do your research. Remember, you need a minimum of 3 outside sources. They should be credible, relevant, and depending on the topic, timely or current. And you are not restricted to just a Google search, but thinking about books you have lying around your home, an interview with someone. We also have the databases and reference librarians who are happy to help you with finding good sources. And from the first couple of weeks in doing our rhetorical triangle work and source credibility, how important it is to find sources that your audience trusts. You are then going to practice. I recommend that you practice a minimum of 10 times, and given the short nature of the speech, that's not a ton of time out of your life. I don't necessarily recommend that you do it 10 times straight, but over the course of the week, sit down in front of your webcam or your mirror or our family or friends or even your pets and say your speech out loud. Saying it aloud is different than reading it quietly. You will say things differently. You will hear things that maybe don't flow like you think they do on paper. So it is critical that you actually rehearse out loud. And if you're able to record or see yourself, knowing that you are connecting with your audience via that eye contact, that you're not gesticulating wildly all over and being distracting. So practice, practice, practice. That is one piece of feedback when I ask students at the end of the term what you wish you'd done more of or differently. And it was always, I wish I would have practiced more. The more you practice, the more you get that content solidified in your brain, the more confident you feel as you present, and the less you have to rely on reading. I want you to really focus on trying not to need a lot of notes in front of you. The more words you have in front of you, the more tendency you will have to want to read. And that reduces your connection to your audience. That reduces your eye contact. So minimal notes, words and phrases. Remember, you're not going to want to have your actual draft of your speech in front of you, because if you do, I promise you, you will be tempted to read it. And that automatically declines your interaction with your audience. So practice, 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 practice. I have recorded a short video on citing sources. You do need to verbally cite your sources when you present to a public. That means telling us where you got the information. So in a 2019 article from the New York Times, the authors show, or according to the Centers for Disease Control or the CDC, they have stated, etc. So you're telling your audience when and where the information comes from. And then the other component is that you are citing your sources in the bibliography in the draft of your speech that you give to me. And I have some sources referenced for you there. And then there's a last optional piece of writing from Navy SEALs. Again, optional means you don't have to read it, but you are certainly welcome to. So this week you are practicing, you are finalizing, you are maybe continuing to do some research. If you do want some additional feedback, know that you have resources, including the Learning Commons on campus, which includes Zoom tutors, physical tutors in the space itself, and then you can submit a draft to the Online Writing Center and they can give you some feedback too. So don't be afraid to use those resources. And if you have questions about what you're doing, or if you want a piece of advice on, does this make sense here? Is my thesis statement strong? Is this attention getting enough? Just drop me an email and I'm happy to answer those questions. Happy writing, happy researching, and I look forward to hearing your speeches next week. Take care, everybody.